And shortly after this specific pear incident, Patricius becomes sick and he dies. But before his death, something really important happens for young Augustine. He converts to Christianity. Monica's prayers and faithful example finally reach her husband. Now, with Patricius gone and no money left, Augustine's education seems basically done, right? When the patriarch of the family eventually passes on, the family is left destitute. But a wealthy citizen of Tagaste named Romanianus noticed that Augustine had potential and a natural talent for literature, and thanks to this man's financial support, Augustine headed to Carthage to continue his studies. And for a small-town kid, this was a dream come true. I mean, he was thrust into this bustling city. Now, Carthage was everything a young man from the country could ever dream of, and everything that his mother was terrified of. The city was completely pagan. People worshipped the goddess Tanit, and though Augustine's interest in learning was very strong, the city's temptations just overwhelmed him. With his father dead and his mother far away, Augustine just dove into everything that this new bustling city of Carthage had to offer. Against his mother's wishes, he took a mistress and had a son named Adeodatus. It's important to note they remained faithful to each other throughout this time. Laws about social class may have actually forbidden them from legally marrying, and at the time, people couldn't really marry outside of their social status or like their class rank. Now, his mother, Monica, didn't approve at all. But despite the temptations, Augustine also became very serious about his education, and he began studying public speaking and math and music and philosophy. And as he later wrote, "My unquiet mind was altogether intent to seek learning." Now, during this time, he discovered the Roman philosopher Cicero, who wrote about wisdom's importance. And this made Augustine wonder, what is wisdom? And sure, it's important, but how can I actually find it? So Augustine wants truth. And this is ultimately what he finds within himself. And when Cicero awakened his desire for this wisdom, he naturally looked first at the Bible. But he ran into a problem. He expected it to be as beautifully written as Cicero's elegant Latin prose. But the Bible he read was translated into rough, kind of common Latin. And the stories that he was reading really shocked him. Patriarchs with multiple wives and stories of adultery. Augustine was almost scandalized, right? This is his mother's faith. This is the faith that his mother talks about all the time, the God that she's praying to. But yet this book that he's reading of these faithful men are just, they're living these debaucherous lives. And so for him, he was confused. He's was this really supposed to be the example of faith? And so disappointed by this, he abandoned the scripture and looked for something more appealing. And in the crowded religious marketplace, to use that term, of this Roman Empire, there were a ton of options. A Persian man named Mani founded Manichaeism, this Eastern religion that really emphasized reason and science and philosophy while claiming to be Christian. And he believed that Manichaeism was a purified version of Christianity that involved many of the more tangible sciences. And Mani claimed to be an apostle of Christ, but taught that Christ perhaps was never born or never became human and never died. He didn't really like the established church and promoted this new version of truth that attracted a lot of truth seekers, much like Augustine. Now, Augustine went for these teachings. He admired the Manichees and they lived this disciplined, moral, logical life, and it really appealed to him. They also claimed to seek wisdom in classes taught by these elite elders that were very wise, and the promise of this secret knowledge was incredibly attractive. We'll give you the secrets that no one else knows, and we'll explain the universe and all the mysteries and all the teachings, and you'll know everything that there is to know. And it's a pretty bold promise. But at 25, Augustine joins the Manichees and then returns to Tagaste to teach public speaking, bringing his mistress, aka wife, and his son. Now, when Monica heard about his involvement with this group, she was devastated. And, her heart broke doing it, but she refused to let him into her house. But Augustine wasn't discouraged. He just simply stayed with his friend, Romanius, who basically funded his education and, became famous for his speeches. Then something happened that changed everything. A close friend whom Augustine had convinced to join the Manichees suddenly became very sick, and while unconscious, the man's family had a priest baptize him, and 2 weeks later, he died. This death deeply affected Augustine, and he looked to the Manichees for comfort, but their answers were pretty short in the face of this tragedy that he just experienced. He bombards his teachers with questions. most couldn't answer anything satisfactorily, right? Like, he's asking them, where is he going to go? What happens to his soul? Like, will I ever see him again? Why did he die? Why does this evil exist? And they all kind of just said, like, don't worry. Like, there's answers. Faustus will tell you the answers. Don't worry. Now, Faustus was the top Manichaean teacher. Augustine anticipated meeting him with a lot of excitement. He was like, this guy will have all the answers, and he'll explain logically why my friend died and where he is and what our purpose on earth is, and he'll be able to answer all of these longing questions. But when they finally met, Augustine felt completely let down. Faustus wasn't very educated, right? He knew less than Augustine already did, and he wasn't very well read or particularly intelligent in any way. And Faustus actually asked Augustine to tutor him. Disappointed and disillusioned by this meeting, Augustine's interest in the Manichaeans really faded. And though he still identified with this movement, serious doubt started to set in, and the seeds of doubt were just taking over his entire soul. Now, after Augustine started drifting from the Manichees, Monica just intensified her prayers. She sought spiritual guidance from church leaders. She approached one bishop who had himself been involved with the Manichees when they were young, and the bishop refused to speak with Augustine, but told Monica, the son of so many tears could not be lost. That bishop could predict Augustine would eventually be saved, and that was his feeling, or at least his hope, because Monica prayed so intensely. For nearly 3 years, Augustine taught in Carthage. Frustrated by undisciplined students and the lack of organization, he just wanted to leave. So Augustine did something deeply dishonest. He told Monica to wait at a church while he said goodbye to a friend. And instead, he got on a ship and he left without her.